My partner announced, "I'm redefining our relationship unilaterally for my growth," as if she were updating app terms and conditions I'd accidentally agreed to in my sleep. I answered, "Perfect timing." The timing really did feel surgical, right down to the way her eyes flickered with relief, like a parachute had finally opened after she'd been free-falling alone. Kara and I had been together 5 steady years. We had a patterned life that looked like commitment from the outside, a shared binder of house-hunting notes with color-coded tabs, a monthly future state dinner at a place with ceramic plates and cloth napkins, a running list called luxuries later we added to when we wanted something but chose to save instead: espresso machine, beach week, new tires. We kept Sunday mornings quiet, deliberately sacred. 1 pot of medium roast, 2 mugs, 3-hour windows to read and sometimes bicker sweetly about whether the neighborhood market had better mushrooms than the co-op. The ordinary was a sanctuary, like a well-balanced spreadsheet. The numbers add up and the cells don't overflow. Then came Tuesday, which was not special until it was. She closed the door carefully, set her gym bag down with exacting neatness, and leveled a look at me calibrated for outcomes, not conversation. "Alfie, I need to update some core assumptions about us," she said, perched on the couch like a board member about to fire a CEO and call it vision. "Core assumptions," I repeated, like an engineer echoing an error code. My laptop screen glowed with a 3D model of a public amphitheater we were renovating, clean planes, loyal geometry. I was halfway between load calculations and texturing when my personal life requested a hard restart. "I've been working on myself," she continued, "and part of that work is exploring a more expansive connection framework. I want to transition us to a non-monogamous model. I'm not asking permission, I'm updating my terms." She smiled then, small, practiced, as if the right branding would soften the blow. "Not asking permission," I said. I tried to keep my voice steady, and failed to keep my mind from inventorying the past 8 weeks. Later evenings, extra Pilates. A phone she suddenly kept face down, as if gravity had grown morally complicated. "So this isn't a discussion," I said, getting it all the way into the air, "it's a rollout." "A rollout," she echoed, almost relieved I'd given it a word. "We can talk boundaries later," she added, "like curfews, disclosures, a quick sync each week." She touched my knee managerial. "We're strong enough to hold more." "Great," I said, maybe too brightly. "The timing works out beautifully." Her eyebrows flicked. "What do you mean?" I exhaled. "Aria from the ceramic studio keeps leaving me test swatches after class, little tiles with blues that look like dusk. She asked me to get tea once. I said no because I was in a committed relationship, but if we're expanding frameworks, I should probably text back." I watched the word, probably, land like a coin balanced on its edge. Kara's composure dipped and righted itself. "Let's not rush. We should align on protocols." "Protocols," I said. "You said boundaries later." My thumbs hovered over my phone. "Tea is fairly low impact." She didn't smile. "I think we should draft a baseline agreement first. Honesty, respect, no dating mutuals, opt-outs. We need a change management plan." She was back in her fluent corporate, careful and exact. I typed, "Tea tomorrow, 10 a.m. at Ember Finch," and hit send before my courage disintegrated under politeness. "There," I said. "Now we'll have something to pilot while we write the plan." Her jaw tightened in a way that was almost compassionate. "Alfie, we can't just start. This is sensitive." "Agreed, but this is also your update, not mine." You pushed go. I closed the 3D model and waited for my heart to catch up to my mouth. "We can test in production and revise. That's how modern teams ship," I said, trying too hard to sound unbothered and landing somewhere near petty. Tea with Aria became 3 hours of the kind of ease I'd almost forgotten existed. She made bowls that looked like the skin on rivers at dawn. She had a laugh that wasn't careful. She asked a question and listened to the answer like it might matter. When she kissed the napkin with her tea-stained lip and didn't notice, my chest did a small, private thing that felt like a hinge loosening. That evening, Kara stirred Pharaoh with unusual vigor. "How was tea?" she asked, like a weather report she didn't need. Lovely, I said. We're going to a pop-up gallery Saturday, the one tucked behind the bakery with the stapled flyer that says, Light, not obedient. Kara's spoon paused midair like it had hit a bone. Saturday is meal prep, she said. Arya knows a painter showing work that uses shadow the way most people use silence, I added, because I wanted to say something true that wasn't cruel. Let's add a policy, Kara said. No repurposing our places. No first dates at our restaurants. Done, I said. We can sign it under a lamp and pretend we're diplomats. I tried to soften. And you? She looked at her spoon like it required a strategy. I have dinner Friday with someone from class, she said finally. It's exploratory. Her eyes met mine and skittered away. The room felt like a conference room after a loud exit, pens still aligned, air still buzzing. We ate quietly. She laughed too hard at something I said that wasn't funny. And I realized, with the slow, ugly relief of a ship finally admitting it's taking on water, that maybe we'd both been living on implied terms for a while. The first spill wasn't jealousy, it was logistics. Thursday, Kara changed our shared calendar event, Thursday roast veg, to out with a yellow dot that looked like optimism in a shirt. I added studio, Arya Sunday morning, and watched the colored blocks start to braid. Friday, Kara texted, late tonight, don't wait up, which was almost considerate except it came with a photo of pasta 2 minutes later, bigali, hand-cut, basil scattered like confetti. Our no repurposing policy was still a draft, and my brain still read that restaurant as ours, like muscle memory at a staircase. I said nothing because saying nothing felt like the only power I had that didn't make me into someone I wouldn't date. Saturday, Arya and I stood in a narrow white room behind the bakery, while a young painter explained that light is a pressure as much as a presence. Arya squeezed my hand when the painter's mother cried quietly beside a piece called Patient Window. On the walk back, we shared a peach tart, and she told me about her apprenticeship in Kyoto, where her teacher said emptiness is where the bowl does its work. I had to look away to keep my face from saying too much. Kara was bright when I got home, bright like she'd swallowed a light source. How was the backroom shadow thing? She asked, looking at my shoes as if they might confess the route we took. Beautiful, I said. And you? It was good, she said. He's direct, refreshing. She chewed her lip. He's a personal trainer who writes fan fiction. Strange, right? People contain multitudes, I said. I wanted to mean it. 2 days later at lunch, my coworker Miri set down her chopsticks and said, Kara messaged me at 1 a.m. asking if I thought you like surprises. Do you like surprises? I blinked like an aquarium fish. Only from people who spell my name right on birthday cakes, I said. We laughed and my ribcage loosened an inch. That night, Kara was quieter. She stacked dishes carefully, then wiped the counter with the care of someone cleansing an altar. Quick question, she said, a phrase that never means quick. Do you think Arya would be open to not posting pictures with you for work optics? My job doesn't care who I stand next to in a square, I said. It's just, she exhaled. We're pitching a wellness contract with his gym's co-founder, and if anyone connects dots it could look messy. Your trainer who writes fan fiction, I said. Don't say it like that, she said. It's not like that. How is it? I asked genuinely. She looked at the sink. Evolving. We wrote the boundaries document that night. No sleepovers on weeknights. No dating within 2 degrees of professional separation. No using the relationship as cover for lies. Full disclosure of active partners. Safe practices. A monthly retro, what's working, what hurts, what needs to change. We both signed. She kissed me light as punctuation. The first time I felt the shape of losing was Wednesday at 3 p.m. when I looked over and saw her smiling at a text, small, involuntary, like a curtain moving because of an inside breeze. The second time was Friday when she bought new running shoes after swearing off running. The third time was Sunday when she made a marinade I'd been perfecting and didn't ask how long it needed to sit. The fourth time was a photo in her camera roll of her hand on a wooden table I didn't recognize. One coffee ring, pen scribble, a grain pattern like muscle. I closed the app and put my phone face down, as if it might protect me from spill. Arya met me at the studio with clay under her nails, and a little scar near her thumb, she said, came from cutting a cantaloupe too fast. "Let your hands know before your head approves," she said, adjusting my grip around the spinning bowl. "The head lags," the clay centered. "So did I. Kara missed our Retro Tuesday." "Work emergency," she said. "I'm presenting a brand alignment at 8 a.m. Her eyes were bright and far away. I had a feeling I wasn't in the deck. The universe, which sometimes acts like a director with a wicked sense of blocking, brought all the threads into the same room. My firm had a public lecture on equitable plazas, hosted at a co-working hub in the health district. Kara's agency, it turned out, had a wellness incubator operating on the same floor. Arya was doing a small pop-up in the shared atrium, cups that could fit in the palm like a kept promise. And the trainer, whose name I'd learned was Rowan, was giving a mobility demo 2 glass walls away. "Of course," Miri said on the elevator. "It's a festival of professional overlap." She adjusted my collar like she'd known me since grammar school. "You good?" "I am a city-owned bench," I said. "Functional, neutral, welcoming of all." It was bravado. My stomach was interviewing butterflies for a dance residency. Kara found me first, all precise warmth. "You were great," she said after my talk, though it hadn't happened yet. She stepped closer and tucked a curl behind my ear, a gesture she'd filed under affection, efficient. "That tie," she added, like a line in a script that had to land. Rowan showed up in a t-shirt that made his biceps look like an argument. He shook my hand very firmly and called me man, as if we were already on a team. "Kara told me you build places that make people feel things," he said. "Love that." He smelled like cinnamon gum and effort. "Hi," Arya said, soft but not apologetic, appearing like a good song between 2 loud ones. Her hands were dusted in slip. "I brought your bowl," she added, and pulled out a small, perfectly imperfect curve of moon. Kara's eyes clocked it. People who have lived together can feel when another person's eyes clock a thing. Arya looked at Kara with open kindness that wasn't performative. "Lovely to meet you," she said, and she meant it. Kara was gracious. She said very gracious things. The air hummed. We orbited for an hour. I did my talk. Kara did her smile that looks like an NDA. Rowan squatted something heavy, then explained the hip as a hinge. Arya sold 2 cups to a nurse who said she wanted her mornings to feel like a touch. I watched the people I was currently attached to, in different ways, exist within the same frame. That frame taught me a thing I didn't want to know. After, Kara pulled me into a quiet hallway near a water fountain that had a sign reading, "Filter replaced May 12. "We need to talk about optics," she said. "Rowan's co-founder is in the audience for my pitch, and if he senses triangulation, it could hurt the deal." "What does triangulation look like so I cannot do it?" I asked. "Posting with Arya, being seen in certain spaces, running into each other in the wrong corners of the internet. I need you to stay low." She took my hand and squeezed. "Temporarily." "Got it," I said, trying to keep my voice from going brittle. "You want me to shrink so your pitch can land?" The words sounded harsher than I felt. I felt tired, which sometimes comes packaged in sarcasm. "Not shrink," she said. "Strategically recede." "Same word in a different blazer," I said. That night the executive director of my firm emailed. "Bring that energy to the panel," she wrote. "Community design through personal ethics. The room leaned forward when you went quiet." I stared at the sentence and wondered what it meant to go quiet in public while my private life sounded like pots dropping down a staircase. At 11:13 p.m. Kara texted, "Can you sleep at Arya's Fry? Ro has a 5 a.m. training and I need an empty apartment night before my deck goes live. I focus better when I can pace." I looked at the ceiling fan. I typed sure and hit send. At 11:14 p.m. Arya texted, "My kiln runs hot tonight. If you want to come over, I'll make tea. We can name the spoons." I typed yes and almost added a heart, then didn't, because my life had become a series of small omissions labeled compromise. The unraveling rarely looks like a single torn seam. It's a series of microphrases. A forgotten good morning that used to be muscle memory, a skipped inside joke, a did you eat, replaced with circling back. And then something loud happens, and everyone points at the loud thing like it did all the damage. The loud thing. Thursday morning, Kara's brand alignment meeting with the Wellness Incubator's co-founder imploded. Not because of me, or Arya, or Rowan's hip hinge. Because she presented a deck with a case study from a competitor still under NDA. She'd been working on 4 fronts, sleeping 5 hours, and her judgment had followed the exits. The co-founder asked to pause the pitch, and Kara cried in a bathroom with motion sensor lights that kept going off. She texted me, "I need you." Then, 10 minutes later, "Actually no, don't come. It's my mess." The pendulum of control and collapse wore the paint off the wall. That afternoon, my landlord left a voicemail about a disturbance report Kara had filed. Noise late at night, irregular guests, damage to the hallway wall. I stood in my living room and looked at my life, plants, books stacked like little cities, a small bowl with paper clips, and wondered how my existence had been rebranded as a hazard. Arya listened quietly while I explained. "People don't become different people in conflict," she said, steeping tea the color of amber. "They become their truest strategy." She set a mug in front of me. It said "hold gently" in small cursive near the base, and I laughed because what else was there to do? Kara showed up at my office the next day unannounced. Miri mouthed, "Brace," as she passed my desk like she was tossing me a helmet. Kara took my hand in the lobby and said too loudly, "We need to realign expectations," like we were in a seminar. People looked, I felt like furniture. "We wrote the document," I said, keeping my voice in its box. "We're following it. Your work crisis isn't an ethical crisis for me." "Everything touches everything," she said. "You know that." Systems also have boundaries," I said. "Water doesn't try to be electricity because electricity is having a week." Miri snorted behind a potted plant and vanished. Saturday, the kiln failed at Arya's studio mid-fire. We tried to salvage a set of cups and ended up with strange, slumped miracles that looked like something born from a volcano. "I love them," she said, eyes soft. "Their imperfections are committed." She didn't say, "like us," which is how I knew she wasn't trying to win. She was trying to be real. Sunday night, after a day of not speaking, Kara stood in the doorframe and announced, "I changed the lock." She waggled a key like a magician with a dull trick. "Temporarily," she added. "I need to stabilize my interior." "It's my home," I said. "Our lease says unilateral lock changes are a lease violation." It was not the romance language our early selves had imagined, but adulthood sometimes sounds like a user manual. "It's a boundary," she said. "Language evolves." "So do people," I said. I slept at Miri's and dreamed about a bowl that wouldn't center no matter how I cupped the clay. In the morning, I called a locksmith, the property manager, and my own patience back to the room. The property manager frowned in professional empathy and said the word harassment like she'd filed it today already. In the afternoons that week, I toured small apartments with big windows. I took pictures of floors and sent them to Arya with captions like, "This one looks like it wants to be honest." Arya sent back a photo of a cup with a crack she'd lacquered in gold. "Kintsugi," she wrote. "This is what we do when things break. We cherish the break lines with care." On Wednesday, Kara messaged, "Rowan has been clear, he's not looking for anything exclusive." I misunderstood. "I need to recalibrate." I sat with the complicated feeling of sorrow not because I was losing her, but because she'd been running toward a door that led to a hallway and was somehow shocked there wasn't a bed. "You okay?" I wrote. It felt like a kind thing, and also like throwing water at a fire that wasn't mine to manage. "I don't know," she wrote. "I wanted expansion to mean arrival." "Expansion often means sprawl," I wrote, then deleted it and sent a heart instead, because sometimes metaphor is cruelty in a tuxedo. I moved out on a Tuesday because it felt symmetrical. I packed a dozen boxes and left her the lemon zester she loved more than joy. I labeled one box work, another memory, and one unknown for the things I wasn't sure I wanted but couldn't leave. The property manager handed me 2 fresh keys and said, "Be gentle with yourself." like she was giving me a fragile plant. In the new place, the light came in at an angle that made mornings feel rehearsed. Arya helped me arrange a small work table beneath the east window. "Drafting lives here," she said, tapping the wood. "Breakfast lives here." She set a bowl she'd made at the center, little constellations of glaze like freckles. Kara called once, then again. The first time she asked if we could rebuild. The second time she asked if I could reassure her boss we were amicable. "She worries I'm unstable," she said, voice small. "We are not enemies," I said. "We're a finished project with some punch list items left." "What does that mean?" she asked. "It means we can sign off with care," I said, "and then stop living in each other's drafts." She was quiet. "I wanted to be modern," she said finally. "I thought modern meant painless." "Modern usually means transparent about pain," I said. "That's the upgrade." I didn't block her. I didn't erase the photos. I didn't keep the gifts that felt like surveillance equipment. I kept the lemon zester memory and the Sunday morning rituals we'd curated out of hunger and hope. I let time do the heavy lifting. 3 months later, Arya and I drove out to the salt marsh to photograph reeds in wind. She packed rice balls with umeboshi, and I brought a thermos of coffee, and the sense that the world could still be generous. We walked along a boardwalk with family names carved into it and tried to read without making it a game. "Do you ever feel bad?" Arya asked, adjusting her lens. "About how it ended?" "I feel sad," I said. "Sad for the ways we tried to make a future out of a policy change instead of a conversation." A heron lifted, slow like forgiveness. "Not guilty," I added. "Guilt is for theft. We didn't steal. We miscalculated." Arya nodded the way she nods when a bowl tells the truth on the wheel. "You're gentler with the past than most people." "I keep my hands wet," I said, and she laughed, because crafts can be punchlines too. A week later, Miri texted a photo of the firm newsletter featuring my name under public spaces, private ethics. She added 15-star emojis, and when you went quiet, the room leaned in. I printed it and taped it above my desk to remind myself that decency has acoustics. Kara sent me a link to a thought piece she published. "Against algorithmic intimacy, why friction belongs in love." It wasn't an apology, not exactly, but it was an admission that the self isn't a platform and people aren't features. I read it twice, then sent a thumbs up and a line. "Here's to frictions that make heat without fire." She replied with a heart. On a rainy morning that sounded like quiet applause, I realized the sentence I'd said on the worst good evening of my life had become true in a way I could live with. The timing had worked out beautifully. Not because hurt didn't happen. Because I had stopped letting someone else's terms write my chapters. Because Arya made bowls that reminded me emptiness is where use lives. Because my work asked me every day to imagine public spaces that make private lives more bearable. Because Sunday morning still exists, just with different coffee, different light, a different laugh in the next room. And because when the lock turned in my new door that first night, it sounded like a pencil drawing a line that was finally mine to trace.